do today is we're going to look at a couple of different things. One of them, I'm going to just open, I've got my open window over here. Let me bring that over there so I can get to my desktop. And why don't we go in here? I want to talk a little bit before we go into some other things about curves. So curves are something really powerful. They're in Photoshop in a number of different places. We can apply curves into, just Control M, and just think of M as mountains, and that will bring up the curves dialog box. We can find these curves under adjustment layers, and of course the ones under the adjustment layers are exactly the same. Of course you can't see the adjustment layer because I'm over the top of it right there. So let me just drag that over a little bit, and I think about here you should be able to see it. And so we've got curves there. But curves also live in other places. They live in Camera Raw. They live in when we're working in HDR. There's so many different places when we're in Lightroom. There's a ton of different places that curves are inside of Photoshop, and curves are exactly the same. They work exactly the same for any of these tools. So the fundamental key is just understanding how curves work. And I know a lot of you probably already do, but why don't we just humor me for a minute, and let's jump in a little bit more on curves, because maybe there's something on here that might be new that you don't know about curves. So here's a photograph that I've created. Well, I shot this, and actually I shot this a couple of years ago in Hawaii. This is Makapu. Is anyone here from Hawaii? I'm sure there is. I'm itching to go there. I'm supposed to be there right now, but unfortunately, the way everything is, I'm not there right now. So this is Makapu Island, and what I've done is I've put this scale on here. This is just a black to white grayscale. There's nothing scientific about it. I just created a gradient and then just broke it down to steps. And all I'm using this for is a visual indicator so you can see what's going on. Notice it's flattened. I just flattened it into the photograph. So there's no, you can't find this in Photoshop. It's just for purely visual reference. Okay, so I'm going to open up the curves. I'm just going to hit Command M, and I'm just going to open up the curves in here. That would be Control M on Windows. And rather than grabbing the curves in the adjustment layer, I'm going to do it from here just because I can show it a little bit better. And the dialog box brings it up a little bit bigger, and this will be good just for demonstrating how curves work. Okay, so if you look inside the curves adjustment, and all the curves, you'll see these little gray bars. Maybe you haven't even noticed them, these gradient bars here. Maybe you have, or maybe you haven't, or you don't really know what they're for. But if you look at the very bottom here, notice it goes from black to white. And this is essentially what I've created, black to white here, but I've broken these up into specific regions rather than having a smooth gradient, just so I can demonstrate and show you a little bit easier. Okay, so here's the thing. If I click on the image, notice how it appears on that curve, and I'm only clicking on the grayscale right now. Notice as I start from the left, it starts in that bottom left corner. As I move across, it's moving across in increments, and goes all the way to the top right. And how this works is if you see this grayscale bar, wherever you are on here, don't even think about this as a diagonal line right now. Just think about it. See these vertical lines? Just follow it down. So if I go to this point right here, follow it straight down, and you can see that's the shade of gray right there. It's about 3/4. There's that 50% gray is right in the middle. And watch what happens if we go over here. Let's click on our document here, and if we decide to go across to our 50% gray, see I'm clicking on that scale, notice it appears on here at 50% gray. So what this is doing is it's showing us where we are. Don't think about the mountain or anything else yet, just think about just this gradient bar. So this shows where we are in the image. Now of course if I click on this bar, I know this is going to be black. I know the other side will be white. We'll be 50% gray. We could be around the 3/4 just by clicking, see that, and then the quarter, or it would be that one. So where this really comes in use is when we click on the image, because it's easy to tell looking at this bar, but what about this? how light or how dark is that? Because sometimes the color information can confuse us. So if I click here, is that completely black? No, it's not. See where it's appearing on the grayscale? So that means it's about that shade of gray. So this is what we get with curves, but where they come in use is how we adjust them. So this is known as the input. So if I go down here and I click on there and I say that's my point, it's right there. Now I can add this, of course. I can just simply click on the curve and we add that. Now this is, if you think of it this way, you're going to really understand curves. If this right now goes down, that's the same shade of gray. While this is a perfectly diagonal line, if you go vertically, you're going to see that's the shade of gray right there. And if you go horizontally, you're going to see that's the shade of gray there. It'll be the same. So if we do 50%, we go up, go across, it's 50%. 75%. Where that line meets, it's 75%. Okay, all of that is to say, if we click here on 50% gray, and now I pull it up, we know it lightens the image at the 50% gray area. But how do we know? If we look at it, see it's still 50% gray because this is where we are. But now if we go across, notice now there's 50%, it's now brighter. If you want to make it darker, you pull it down. So we knew this was going on, right? But if you use this grayscale as a reference, it just kind of, I don't know if it just kind of makes things click. Sometimes showing people this is the thing that just kind of makes it click for them. Where it's like, oh, okay, that I get it now. Okay, I finally get it. I understand. Because I know a lot of us, when we jump into curves, we just go in and we're looking at the image, and I'll just move the curve to the side, and you're like, well, it's a bit bright there. I know this is around here somewhere. When I bring it down, darken it, oh, it's not quite there. Yeah, but it's getting a bit weird there, so I'll pull that up. You know, and some people, this is how they use curves. And this is before and after. There's before and after, and we achieved exactly what we wanted. So now you kind of know what's going on. If you look at this here, this is our histogram in there, and it shows us we've got a lot of pixels in the midtones, but a little bit on the dark side of the midtones, and that's the main range of tones in here, and you can see that because of the sky and all the different areas there. All right, so here's the thing. There's different things I can do. I'm just going to undo these curves again. Let me just reset them. The cancel key, if you hit Alt or Option, it'll turn into a reset key. Okay, so if you don't know the tone, you can click with this little finger thing. And then when you click on there, that will add that point to that curve. Now, of course, I could just click and drag up or down if I wanted to lighten or darken those areas. And, you can see that. That'll work fine. But sometimes you want to just add those points and manually drag those. If we click here and think, where's that? Okay, it's around about there. Sometimes dragging that curve, well, not in that case, but sometimes dragging the curve will give us a more desirable result. And if you notice the whole thing bends, the reason the whole thing bends is so it doesn't create posterization. So if it was to just move that one area, let me do what's known as a lockdown curve. A lockdown curve is kind of funny, lockdown. When you put 2 points above and 2 points beneath our point, it enables us to move that, see, without affecting, and that's what we get, posterization. All right, so I'm just going to reset this one more time, and then before we go in to do something practical, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, see when I go to click there, nothing happens. If I hold down the Control key and I click, see how that adds the point to the curve. So Control click, and that would be Command on Mac, will add the point to the curve. And see what I'm doing? Click, click, click. So if you want to add a specific point, hold down that Control and watch what happens at 50%. If we pull that down, now we've got a really good lockdown. Look at that. See how it darkened that? Or pull it up, it lightened it more than everything. And that just kind of shows exactly how that works with that curve. So let me reset this again. So one of the things we can do is say, hey, I want to lighten this up. Feels a little washed out here. I want to add a little contrast. So I'm going to Control click here. So what you can do sometimes is just add a point on either side of this and try not to drag it. It's hard not to. And then this enables you to do just a micro adjustment. See that? Just add a little punch, a little contrast just into that region without affecting the rest of the photo. And this is one of the things that makes curves unique. It's a more difficult tool to use than some of the other adjustment tools inside of Photoshop. But with the curves adjustment, you can target specific regions and specific tones and get very, very nice adjustments just in those areas. Whereas when you're trying to use things like shadow and highlight sliders, you can adjust it, but it's a global adjustment. It's adjusting the entire image, and it's a little bit harder sometimes to tune in. This is still a global adjustment, but it's global on those specific tones. So what do we got here? Let's see what you guys are saying. Triptychs, we saw that. Some different things about luminosity masking. Okay, great. Okay, looks like I got disconnected from the chat. Let me get reconnected, and I'm going to go have a look on the other side here. I just want to make sure I haven't missed any important questions. What is the difference between curves and levels? I think I just explained that. There is the curves allow you to adjust specific tones, where levels don't give you that pinpoint precision. And then there's some luminosity masking stuff. We'll look at that later on. All right, so let's go a little bit further here. So one of the other things we can do with curves, and one of the ways you definitely want to be using them here is as adjustment layers. And I'm just clicking, even if you can't see it, it's an adjustment layer, just going for a curve. And that should pop up right there. Looks like my laptop with the questions chat pod here thing has gone down. Let me get it back on. Just clicking on that right now because I want to make sure I see you guys' questions. All right, so here's another thing we can do with this is, you know, as we know, we can click here too, and we can adjust our tones. We can lighten or darken just by clicking inside the image. See what we're doing here. Now be careful when you do this, because if you add too many different points, see how you start to get posterization when they get too close together. So if you start to click in here and adjust everything, that's fine. That works great. Just be wary of that. You know, you don't get to, you know, adding too many additional points. Okay, it's working a little better there now. That's good. All right, so we can do that, but we can also do things with color. So let me go back just to, actually I can just use this curve. It's fine. I think the adjustment layer is a better way to work. But what if we wanted to adjust the color and I wanted to do it here? I know if I hit the control key and I click, I can add a point. Let's just get out of there for a second. Grab the finger. So if I control click, I'll add that point. But here's the thing. If you hold down the, I believe it's the Alt. No, let me see, get this right. Control Shift and I click. And let me do it again over here. Control Shift and click. It doesn't seem to leave anything there because that other point was there. Let me get rid of it. So what's it doing? Well, here's the thing. If we go into the color channels, it adds the point to those specific color channels. See that? Let me show you that again. I'm going to reset this. Control Shift click, and I'm selecting that blue. And if we go under the channels, there it is. There's that point that we've added. So we can add that to the color channels. And this is super useful because this enables us to adjust the colors on those tones. So if we click the blue here and we specifically clicked here, we know that's where that ocean blue is. I can go there and I can push that up and see how I can add more blue to that region or less blue. So this is really good for color correction. And you know, so here we can go to the different colors here. Look at that, there's the green. And then of course we go into the red, that's where the red tones are there. And see how we can go in there and we can use this for color correction. So this could be useful when you've got color casts or you're working with images where you've got mixed lighting. So maybe you've got more than one lighting. Mixed lighting is, you know, you could have a window there and you could have nice warm light coming through from sunlight from the window hitting somebody, but on the other side there's a fluorescent bulb going and then they get a little green on the other side of their face. You've all seen photos like that, and they could be difficult to correct, but if you go in here and you use the curves, you can very quickly correct those kind of issues by simply getting rid of those color casts by doing what I just showed you. Control Shift and then click, and you can do that. In fact, why don't I open a picture of a person? Let me go to the library and just see what we've got for a picture of a person, just to kind of show you There's no color cast on this, but well, actually this one might. Let's have a look. What have we got here? Okay, so here's a picture of a person, and I want to adjust the tones, the color, maybe on one part of her, you know, where the color cast is, you know, a little bit off. So this is how you would do it. We're going to go in here, we're going to create an adjustment layer, go into curves. Then with the curves adjustment layer, shift control, make sure you grab the little finger thing here, shift control and click. And what we've done now is we've sampled the color. So there it is there's the reds. So if we wanted to change the tone of that, we could go in here, we could warm it up a little bit. Let me go into the green, maybe you got a fluorescent bulb. And of course I'm hypothetically speaking, but you can go in, don't worry if it's adjusting the whole image, we're gonna get to that in a second. So what you're trying to do is get that side of the face where it's looking just right, because maybe you wanted to match it with different parts, or maybe down here is a little bit too, reddish before. So let's go back here and let's have a look at the before and after so I can hide this. Okay, so you see how we kind of changed the color there, very subtle. Why don't I do it very just over the top so you guys can see clearly what's going on. Okay, so let's change the color there. Let's go to our blues. Then all I'm looking at is the skin tone in this area here. Okay, so if we turn this on and off, it's affecting the whole image. But this is how you get rid of that color cast. You go in here, you choose that mask. Every single adjustment comes with a mask. And if you hit Control I or Command I, it's going to invert that mask. And now it's hiding the effects of that curve. So if you look at it, there's just the original photo. Now you can grab that mask, grab a brush, set it to white, and then we could paint. And you know, this is subtle, but see how I'm able to just paint in there. And now I actually don't like it up the top there, it's too much. But you could go in here now, you could go into the face, it's a little too red. Actually, why don't we fix that too? So here's the thing, we can go in here, don't worry about it being too red because I'm going to show you something else. So we're grabbing that side of the face and we want to just kind of adjust it. Okay, so what we're going to do, because we're working on an adjustment layer, let's go back into our curve. Let's go into here, into our reds again, and watch the face now. We can see how we can adjust it in just that area now we painted. So we can make that go super blue, or, you know, however we want to do it. Let's go in here, let's go to the greens. And then we go up a little bit in the green, there we go. Now it's starting to balance out a little bit more. Go to the blues here. And see there, if you wanted that kind of a tone, it's more like that orangey kind of tone here now starting to match. And so see what you can do. So you probably had those images where you have that split lighting like that, or, you know, color contamination as they call it. And then there's one area where you can use that. It's just Shift Command, and then you click on that region, set the color, go into the mask, invert that mask, Command I, so you're hiding it, and then just get that white brush and you can just paint back in where the color cast is to get rid of it. And if it doesn't look right, just go back into the curves like I did there and adjust those curves, and then you can clean up that color cast. So there's one area there where you might be using curves. All right, let me just go have a look on the other screen here, see where you guys got any questions. Any questions about curves, drop them in the comments right now. Exposure blending, I did a tutorial on exposure blending just recently. It's the one of the mountains in Hawaii. Difference between curves and levels, human loss. Okay, so we don't have any new comments in here or questions by the looks of it. Just make sure you guys can still hear me okay. Can everyone hear me okay? Just let me know, and we're going to jump in. If I don't have any questions on curves, we're going to jump in and do something different right now. So just let me know. And by the way, if this is remotely useful to you guys, hit the like button because that helps with the algorithm. So I appreciate that. So just hit a like. And if you're new here on Photoshop Cafe and you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. And I'm not doing this as an ad. I'm actually just stalling for a second because it takes about a minute or so for comments to come through. So that's why I was talking there, waiting for those comments. So it looks like we're good. We're good as far as that goes. Great. All right. So why don't we jump in now, and we're going to do something different. Let me go in here. One of the things we talked about last week was black and white. So why don't we have a look at some things we can do with black and white. So I'm going to open up this image. This is a picture I shot of Brooke in my garage. And so this was shot specifically because I wanted to turn it into a dramatic black and white image, which is why we've got the rim lighting on her face and, you know, kind of lit from the sides here. We're looking for that little bit of drama. So there's different ways of converting this to black and white. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit here inside of Camera Raw. Then we're going to jump into Photoshop and we're going to look at the different ways we can do black and white and figure out what is the best way. Here we go. We got a few comments in here now. You guys can hear loud and clear. Sounds good. Blah, blah, blah. Didn't know about working with color and curves would be very helpful. Yeah, you can also, Suzanne, when you're working in curves, you can also use them for color effects. Before I go into this black and white, why don't I just show, here's a curve here. And let's go to the point curve. And so this is in Camera Raw. And you can do the channels here too. You can also create nice looks to your photo by playing around just with the different color channels here. And you can create, you know, different types of lighting, different coloring, and see how we can get some kind of cool coloring effects there by just changing those individual color channels. So it's kind of a nice way to get some nice creative results. And let me show you before and after, and that's just by changing a few curves there. So that's another thing you can do with them. There's a lot of things we can do, but why don't we move on? So why don't we start in Camera Raw, then we're going to jump into Photoshop. And I do have a quick question before we go further with just you guys let me know, because how many of you are using Lightroom? Would you want to see some Lightroom tutorials in this or not? Just, yeah, Lightroom or no Lightroom, just let me know in the comments. And we're going to continue. All right, so here's the thing. When we do black and white, and we're doing it from Camera Raw, we can click on black and white here. And by the way, the adjustments here in Camera Raw are identical to the ones in Lightroom. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't think about when they make a black and white adjustment, and this is really a tip more than anything, is consider using your temperature and tint sliders. Well, why would you do that? Because it's in black and white. There's no color. You're going to get the most dramatic results by moving these sliders. Look at this. This is the temperature. And what it's doing is, as I'm warming it up, it's taking the skin tones and it lightens them. See that? And if I go the other way, it's going to darken the skin tones. And then the other side is under tint. Watch these gloves. If I go, you know, either way, see how it just really dramatically changes the way that lighting is affecting that photo. Because what it's doing is it's adjusting the underlying tones underneath those particular colors, and it can really make a huge difference. Okay, so what do we got here for Lightroom? Yes, no, okay, we'll look through all that later on. Okay, so why don't we open this image inside of Photoshop, and I'm just going to reset it first, and we're going to open this image, and there's that weird message again. I don't get it. Okay, so let's go in here, and I'm going to show you several ways of doing black and white conversion, and this really comes down to two ways that are the best, and I'm going to show you why. So why don't we make some copies? So the first copy, some ways people do it, and this is a way it's kind of interesting. We used to do it back in the day, but I would never recommend this. If you maybe you want to print black and white, so you need to make it into a monochromatic image. So you can go up under Image Mode, and then go down to Grayscale. Now, here's the problem when we do this. And let me pull out the channels. If you look at the channels now, yeah, we've got a grayscale conversion. All our layers are intact, but look, it's down to one channel. And we didn't get any control over how we wanted to adjust that. So, you know, we've also thrown away 2/3 of our image information. It would be 3/4 if we were in CMYK mode. So let me undo this. So that's not a good way to do it. So normally we have red, green, and blue channels, which is 3 color channels of information. And this is 8 bits. So that means there's 8 bits of information in each one of these channels. That just means more colors. All right. So if the other way we could do it is we could go under Image, mode. So we did image mode, image adjustments, I'm sorry, and then we could go to desaturate. And you could hit Control Shift U to do the same thing. Okay, so you get a desaturation. Okay, that's another way of doing it. That's a second way of doing that adjustment. But we get the 3 channels, which is good. So we're preserving the information there, because otherwise you start to get banding in the gradients when you go down to grayscale very, very quickly. All right, so why don't we hide that? We're going to go to the next one, and there's another adjustment method. And this time, what we're going to do is we're going to go under Image Adjustments, and then what we want to do is we're going to go to Channel Mixer. Now, this is the way that we used to do all black and white work professionally a few years back. I'm just going to pull my chair back because it's squeaking. There we go. Stop. Now that's better. All right. So what we want to do here is we are in the channel mixer. And essentially what we've got here is red, green, and blue. And we can adjust how much of that we want in there. But see how we've got the different output channels. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is go down here and we're going to choose monochrome. And notice now we've just got gray for the output channel. So we've converted it from color to black and white by clicking monochrome. But what makes this method better than the other methods is we have control under the red, green, and blue. So as you know, pretty much all skin tones, well, all human skin tones have red in there. So if we play around with the red, you can see it's definitely going to affect the whole image, but specifically the skin tones. And so we can play around with that and then see how much green we want. Usually not too much green. Actually, green's not bad, but blue. If you look at a color channel sometimes, if you break it down, usually all the stuff in the face that doesn't look good is usually in the blue. If you want to make someone look really bad, just turn them on and just look at the blue channel. Let me demonstrate here. There's the red channel. See that information? There's the green channel. See the information there? And then the blue channel, and there's a lot of information. Because we're not really showing her face, it doesn't look too bad, but look, see how it brings up a lot of the blemishes, whereas the red channel is usually much more pleasing. See that? So just so you know that, that's just a little on the side. So let's go back here, and we're going to go back to our channel mixer again, and I believe it's an adjustment layer as well. So let's apply it as our adjustment layer, and we're going to turn on monochrome, which is up here in the adjustment layer, and let's just adjust it and see how we can now have control over how we make this adjustment. And let's keep it like that. So we've got a pretty nice kind of a soft adjustment here. Okay, so that's the 2 methods so far. So if we look at this, here's the original where we just did the desaturate. And then if we look here, this is where we did the channel mixer. See how much more pleasing it is? And we've got control over this. So I'm now going to show you the 3rd method, which is probably the method a lot of people have been using in the last few years, and that's black and white. So if we go under here, we can choose the black and white adjustment. So the black and white adjustment, what it does is rather than work on the actual color channels, it works on colors. And you can see here that, you know, we can adjust it. We've got a little bit more because we've got RGB. So basically we've got all the colors from RGB and CMYK, which is red, green, and blue. CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and of course black. We're not going to have a slider for black. That would be our brightness. So all the colors there are from those 2 color models. I'm not going to get into all of that right now. It's another topic for another day if you guys want to know about it. But we can go in here. And this gives us a little bit more control, you know, because, for example, we've got yellows in here, which we don't have in the channel mixer. And see, now I can start to get in there and adjust the skin tones a little bit more accurately. And let's go in here. And you're not going to get the problem with the green channel looking bad now because it's just working on green. It's not working, sorry, the blue channel. It's not working on the channel. It's working on the color. So if we look at here, see, we can make her top very, very dark, or we can make her brighter. Even though it's black, there's a lot of blues in there. So in nature, there's not really a true black unless you go into outer space. And look at the magenta. See the difference it makes? So now we can go in and we can fine-tune the controls. Okay. So the big question is, which one is the best? And I'm curious to get your guys' input in here. I feel like, the first one when we converted it just to monochromatic, it's just no. Then when we do the quick conversion here, desaturate, it's okay, but we don't get the control. So then it comes down under the two here, the channel mixer or the black and white. Look at the channel mixer, look at the black and white. Generally speaking, the channel mixer gives you a smoother adjustment. I don't know if you guys can see this through the internet, but let me pull this up to 100%. Here we go. So if we look here, see the quality here of the tones, where it changes tones here. So you want to look at the transitional areas. We've got a really nice quality of tone here. Now we don't get as much control over the individual colors, but I think we get a better conversion here. Now if we look at the black and white, that was the channel mixer. Look at the black and white. It's still very nice, and it gives us a better range of colors that we can adjust. We can get a little bit more control over here. But sometimes, here's something that happens if you push any of these to the extreme or get too close. Notice how we're starting to see artifacts get introduced. And that's the only downside here of the black and white, is we get too far on any of these sliders. I feel like you get more than like that middle third, you're going to start to see artifacts. So that's one thing you just got to kind of watch out for. So I think the answer to that, to me, is I think it depends. I think if you can get what you want as far as like the adjustment you want, the channel mix is going to produce, I think, a more professional result. But the black and white is also going to produce a really good result, and you're going to have more control over how you do the adjustment, as long as you don't have to move any of these sliders too far. So I feel like black and white would work, or channel mixer would work. Let's see what you guys think about this. Let's see. Depends on the workflow. What do we got here? It depends on the workflow. Lightroom. Okay, Photoshop Lightroom needs to move down. So the tutorial needed a workflow. Black and white. So Rhett says black and white by far. Okay. Suzanne says black and white. Okay, so that's 2 for black and white, 1 for channel mixer. Mike likes the channel mixer. JP likes black and white. Terry Brown likes the black and white. Russ likes black and white. What about using lab color? Yeah, that's another option there, Kevin. And we'll look at that. Actually, I have something we're going to do with that in a second here. I hear you there. If you do photos, I hear you there. If you do photos here and there, Photoshop is much more powerful. Okay, so this is a Lightroom. Lightroom is king. No Lightroom, please. Okay, so we've got a lot of things. So what we'll do is, just because not everyone wants to do Lightroom, we're going to keep these to Photoshop only. So I'll drop the occasional Lightroom tutorial into photoshopCAFE, on the YouTube. I'll drop those in there, and I'm going to... so we'll do that. I'm not going to make some of you watch Lightroom if you don't want to. All right, okay. So channel mixer, black and white. So we've got a mixture there. And so here's the nice thing about Photoshop. There's more than one way to do everything in Photoshop, and I don't necessarily agree when some people say there's a right way and a wrong way. There is not a right way and a wrong way for a lot of things, but sometimes there's a best way, and depending on the image you're working with. And so here's the thing. I'm very careful to give those blanket assessments, because every photograph is different, every image is different, and they all respond differently. So I would say use the best tool that gets you the best result for that image. So anyway, that was good. And so I'm going to imagine you guys like the black and white adjustment who did, because of the range of tones you could get. And some of the, she is Pimp Tech. She's pretty fit. She used to be my marketing manager. Actually, this is Brooke, and she works out a lot. She's very fit and does a lot of anyway, moving on. I thought we were talking about muscles there. Okay. So why don't we do something here? Lab color. Sorry. All right. So the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to talk about lab color. I guess today's all about color. Color and tone. Next week, we're going to do more tips, just so you guys know. We'll do some cool, fun tips and stuff like that today's like some heavy lifting. All right, so what we're going to do here is quickly look at lab. Lab is another way of adjusting, and what that does is it splits up the image into lightness, A and B channels, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Let me have a look here. There's my channels. Let me just drag those back. So typical RGB image, red, green, and blue channels. Now, this is a jet flying down Death Valley. I won't tell you how long I stood there waiting for this, a long time. And I want to bring out the tones. Now, this is difficult to get the tones out. So this is where lab color is good, and I'm also going to show you what it does. So if we go into image mode, and this is where we choose our different color modes, by the way. I won't explain them all here, but let's just jump into lab color. Watch, before I click on it, keep your eye over here. Watch the channels. See how they changed? The image looks exactly the same, but it changed it into lightness, A and B, and this is where lab comes from, L, A, B. So, you know, some people call it lab, but technically it's LAB, but it really doesn't matter. All right, so how does this work? Why is this different, and why is it great? Well, what makes this really interesting is, I know some of you like to use frequency separation when it comes to retouching, where you're separating texture from the smoother areas or the color areas, right? This does a very kind of similar thing, but it's separating the lightness from the color. So it separates the grayscale information from the color information in a photo. So if we click on the lightness channel, this is our black and white. This is our grayscale information that gives the photograph definition. If we click in the A channel, this gives us color. Might not look like it until I click the B channel as well. And that's it. That's all the color that's in this image. It's a very, very thin layer of color. Now, by separating between color and luminosity, this gives us a lot of advantages. One of the advantages, of course, is we can do things like sharpening and stuff like that without shifting color. And the other thing is we can do color correction without affecting the luminance of the photo or the structure of the photo. So think of this as structure and then the colors. All right, so how can this come in use? It can come in use for a photo like this, for things like cleaning this up. Let me go here and see if I could just quickly duplicate it so we can do a before and after. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to give this some tone because it's lacking contrast. I'm going to click on lightness. And now I want to give this an adjustment. I'm just going to adjust it straight onto the photo. Normally we should be using adjustment layers. Why don't we, we'll just do it on the photo just to make it easier so you guys can see what's going on without confusing it by adding adjustment layers. But I just want to let you know, in the real world when I do this, I will be using adjustment layers. So why don't we just go in here and we're going to bring up our curves. And this is just purely for simplicity, right? So you can see what's going on. Okay, so curves looks like this. There's nothing here in our shadow area. And the first darkest 50% of that photo, there's nothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this black slider and we're going to pull it all the way over. And we're saying this is now the black point. We don't need all this rubbish. There's nothing there. So we're setting this to the middle and look at this. Boom. There comes our information. Now, remember, we're not shifting our colors because we're not touching our colors right now. This is really nice. And why don't we just do a little bit into our highlights as well? Just brighten those up a little bit. And notice I'm moving this here and I'm looking at the histogram. I just want to see where there's information on the histogram. Maybe I'll give it a little headroom. But there's nothing there, so why waste it? Okay, so we're going to click there right now. And we can see now we've adjusted that. If we look at our LAB, look at that already. We've got an incredible adjustment there without like doing anything except adjusting that luminosity. Although the colors are a little lacking. Why don't we punch up these colors? So I'm going to grab the A channel, Control M for curves, and here's our curves. Okay, now I'm going to show you something interesting. If you look here, this has magenta and green. Look at it. All over the place, right? So what we want to do is we want to boost these. So why don't we take this in a little bit? I'm boosting it. Let's take it all the way to the quarter. It's pretty extreme, but don't worry about it. Let's go the other side. So what we've done now, see, we've boosted those two colors, the magenta and the green. That's the A channel. Great. Click OK. Let's go to the B channel. Do exactly the same thing. Control M, Command M on Mac. And then we're going to go in here, take this, drag it to the... Oh, let me show you what colors we got here, just so you know. Yellow, blue. Okay, so just the yellows and blues are in here. So we've separated the magentas, the greens, the yellows and blues by using the lab mode from the color. Okay, so let's go here. We're going to drag this up. There's our blues. Obviously too much blue because we haven't balanced it yet with our yellow, which is the opposite of blue, of course. And if we balance that now, see what we've got? We've been able to boost all of those colors by a quarter without adding any noise or artifacts. Now, one of the things I do like to do is when I'm in here, I might grab the middle and just tweak it just to get a, maybe, there we go. I'm pushing it in, maybe into the colors I like a little bit. And you could go up here and just, pull these a little bit more because, if it's not a perfectly color balanced photo or you want to adjust the balance, you could do it here. But I almost feel like I don't want to touch it there. I just want to do it pure. And then we go there. So if we look at this before and after, that's using lab mode. Now, lab mode is not something you necessarily want to use on every single photograph that you work on. But, when you get some tough photos or photos that just have very, very subtle information that you want to play around with, it works really well. It takes a little bit more time. And like I say, it's not something you use for every photo, but when you do want to use it, man, it's great. And one of the things we can do when you finish is choose image mode, go back to RGB, let's not flatten it, and there we go. Now I've heard some people saying, hey, going between RGB and lab mode, it affects your photos and it ruins information. I don't see that happening. And if it does happen a little bit, it's not going to damage the photo anywhere near as much as trying to do luminosity adjustments on red, green, and blue channels independently there, when we're just trying to adjust brightness and you're also messing with the colors. The advantages of, let me simplify that, the advantages of lab far outweigh any of the downside. And if there are shifts when you change it, it's not something I've really noticed. It's not anything big. So what do you guys think about that? How do you guys feel? It's important to boost colors equally. Yep. Okay, so I guess you're glad I didn't go crazy. All right, let's see what you guys have got here in the comments. Amazing how different the curves look when using lab. Yes, they do. Great way to use lab. Thanks, Russ. Awesome alternative. Never used color lab. Color lab is super useful. Wow, we're almost at 200 viewers here. You guys, a lot of you here. So we are getting near the end of this week, and thanks, guys. I know this was a little bit more, I don't know, a little more theory than we usually do, but we're hanging out here for an hour, so hopefully what we've done here is useful to you guys. If it is, hit the like button if you like it, and also subscribe if you haven't subscribed to Photoshop Cafe yet. But we're coming back next week, next Thursday. We're going to be back here at 1 o'clock. And we're going to do a little bit more creative work, maybe. We might roll up our sleeves a little bit with maybe just a touch more theory. But this week we've really gone into some stuff of color and tone. And if you rewatch this and apply it, I think it can really help you with your images. But most important, guys, is, thanks for hanging out. Oh, we hit over 200? Oh, that's good to know, Russ. Thanks for hanging out with me this week, guys. It's been great to all come together for Lockdown Thursday. I hope you're all safe. How are you guys doing? The official broadcast is over. I'm just going to hang out for a couple of minutes and just kind of talk to you guys now. So how are you guys doing? Are you all right? Is everyone doing okay? I know work-wise we might not be doing well right now, but I just hope health-wise you guys are good. Are you safe? Are you doing all right? Let me know in the comments. Also, I did a little article that maybe helped some of you guys a little bit. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's on photoshopcafe.com. I did an article. Let me bring it up here on This Is Us. Let's have a look here. where do we go? Yeah, I did one on working at home. Let's have a look here. Let me just create this and I'll show you. So basically, it was this photoshopCAFE. So this article I just did is here, work from home, tips and tools. Oh yes, and I forgot, and you can win a Wacom tablet. I should mention this to you guys too. Let me click through here. I'm going to tell you how to win a Wacom tablet. So work from home, I did an article here. I did a couple of videos. One of them is just a mindset, getting in the right mindset and stuff like that. How to be efficient working from home. And then I went into the gear. This is my home office. Right here is the studio we're in right now. This is where we're streaming from. So right there, well, I took the webcam off, but that's the webcam right there I'm looking at. That's the mic I'm talking into. These are the screens I'm answering comments. This is the screen I'm working on. So, and I go through there and I explain all the gear I've got. So, check that out. But we're giving away a Wacom Intuos Pro Medium. In fact, we're giving away 2 of them. And one of them is, if you right there on YouTube, click on the video that I've got there of my home office. And all you got to do is drop a comment in there. And we're going to do a live drawing on those comments. And at random, somebody is going to win a Intuos Pro Medium tablet. And we're going to draw it live on this show, on Live from Lockdown. We're going to actually draw that winner in a couple of weeks. And then here on the site, you can go in here. I guess I already did it, but you can just share it on social media here. And there's a second tablet we're giving away from the website from photoshopCAFE. So you've got 2 chances to win. Go in photoshopCAFE. Just drop your email in and share that or like the page or whatever. And then go to YouTube. And both of those are going to be drawn and announced live here at on our Live from Lockdown in a couple of weeks. We're going to give away both of those tablets. So if you guys are interested in those, check them out, and because as you know, I use a Wacom tablet. How many of you guys use Wacoms? Russ likes them. I couldn't leave a comment when I watched it on my computer. Really? That's weird. I don't know why. The comments are turned on. Maybe try a different browser, Vivi. So anyway, guys, just give me your suggestions for next week. And also, once again, as I always say, when the live, the replay comes up in about 30 minutes or so, it takes for YouTube to get the replay up. Please drop those suggestions into the replay as well, into the comments there, so I know what you guys want to learn. Especially during this time when we're all together during this lockdown global pandemic. I'm really looking for your guys' suggestions on tutorials, and a lot of your suggestions are driving the content that I'm sharing with you guys because, I want to share what you guys share. I've got no secrets. I've got nothing, no trade secrets that I'm not going to share with you. I'm happy to share anything. So, ask me anything, and I'm more than happy to share with you guys. So, I guess it's getting around that time where we are. Our hour is up, and still a lot of you hanging around. It's nice to have this thing. I could leave this chat open just for a few more minutes for you guys. In fact, why don't I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to leave the chat open for you guys for about another 5 minutes or so you can just chat. So, thanks for watching, guys, and until next Tuesday when a new tutorial comes out. And next Thursday, I'll see you guys at the cafe. Ciao.